Are you looking to go more plant-based but miss some of those delicious recipes from when you were growing up, such as pumpkin pie? I'm Hannah Mason, and in this episode of You Don't Know Beans, I'm going to be introducing you to my vegan pumpkin pie recipe that I do with a cute, funky little butternut squash. So this is the littlest butternut squash I think I've ever seen in my entire life. It got picked up by my husband at the health food store yesterday, and I'm so excited to cook with it. I actually cut another one similar to it yesterday and put it into a red lentil stew. And one of the reasons I love butternut squash is because it's so incredibly hearty. Unlike pumpkin, which is a pretty wet fruit, these are technically fruits, even though we talk about them as being vegetables or starches. So pumpkin and squash are in the same family, along with cucumbers and melons and watermelon and zucchini and summer squash and winter squash, all these different squashy things, right? They're all in the cucurbit family, and if you've ever grown them in a garden, you can tell their leaves look the same when they're first growing. It's really hard to tell the difference between a pumpkin and a squash and a watermelon and a cucumber. You almost have to wait until the fruit comes out, unless you're the one who planted it, in which case you know what you put in the ground. In any case, so butternut squash is particularly sweet and hearty and creamy and rich, which is one of the reasons I love it in soups, particularly in the winter. But it's also why I like it in pumpkin pie, because you want pumpkin pie to be thick and not like full of water and swimming all over the place. So even though a lot of people talking about using pumpkin in their pumpkin pie, most people like to use either sweet potato or butternut squash or some other hearty winter squash in their pumpkin pie. But the question is, wait a second, doesn't pumpkin pie require egg and milk or buttermilk? And how are you going to do that and be vegan at the same time? So it's really quite simple. I go online to any of those recipe websites and look up a pumpkin pie recipe that doesn't require using cooked pumpkin in a can. I just use fresh butternut squash. So what I do is I literally Google the term butternut squash pumpkin pie, and you'll get some killer recipes there. And they require that you take your butternut squash, either roast it by cutting it straight down the middle and putting it face down on baking paper, parchment paper, in the oven at a really high temperature, and then you just scrape out all the inside. The other option is you could put it in a pressure cooker to steam, or you could just boil it in a pot. Whatever it is, you want all the flesh from the inside and not the skin, which normally when you roast you can eat, but for pumpkin pie it's like a little too chewy. So you're going to take all of that inside out. Where your recipe calls for milk, you can use any kind of plant-based milk, like soy or almond or oat or rice or hemp. Gosh, they've got hemp milk now. What I actually use is almond cream. So here in Israel, we have what's basically tahini, but it's made out of almonds. So they take raw almonds and they grind them up, and you get this really delicious cream that I use in lots of recipes. You can also use tahini instead. So in order to replace the milk or the cream, I use that and combine it with water, and voila, I've got a milk. And tahini sits on the pantry for a long time without going bad. I always keep it in my fridge just to make sure the oils don't go rancid. But there you go, plant-based milk in 2 seconds flat. And instead of egg, this is the really, really easy part. So it just so happens there are certain other foods that behave just like egg. The reason we want egg in a recipe is because egg has all of these proteins that are able to shape themselves and make things like form or make things rise. And there are other foods that do just the same thing. So one of them is aquafaba. Aquafaba is the leftover water from cooking chickpeas, and it behaves exactly like egg. So you take an egg's bulk of aquafaba, though I personally haven't tried that yet in pumpkin pie. I make quiche with that. The other alternative is to use flax meal. So if you take flax seeds and you grind them in your coffee grinder, you take a tablespoon of ground flax and 3 tablespoons of water. Tablespoon of ground flax, 3 tablespoons of water, mix it together and let it sit for 10 minutes. And there you go, you have the equivalent of 1 egg. So if your recipe calls for 2 eggs, you take 2 tablespoons of flax and 6 tablespoons of water, and you're good. And then you want to make sure to put tons and tons of spices in your pumpkin pie. Why? Because cinnamon and nutmeg and clove and allspice, all of these spices are incredible digestive aids, and they're also really powerful antioxidants. Actually, cloves have more antioxidants per gram or whatever than any other food on the planet. Cloves are really amazing. The flavor is also really intense, so there's only so much you can handle. But as much spices as you can put in your pumpkin pie, those spices really matter to your ability to fight disease and help with digestion and give all of your microbes an extra boost. Now, the other thing that I do, which is not in any recipe that you'll see as far as I know, is that instead of a sweetener, I use dates. So if your recipe calls for maple syrup or honey or sugar or cane sugar or crystallized who knows what, I don't know, just use dates instead. So you use a cup of packed dates, obviously depitted, is the equivalent of a cup of sugar or a cup of any liquid sweetener. And you put the dates along with the roasted butternut or steamed butternut mush into your food processor along with every other ingredient, and it's all going to get mixed in. Make sure those dates get cut up really, really fine, and the dates give this incredibly rich, very unique flavor. They're very sweet, but their sweetness fills the entire mouth in a way that regular sugar just doesn't. The other thing is that dates are a whole food, and as I've said many times over, a whole food plant-based diet is what we're really aiming for, because nature or God or the universe, whatever language you like to use, created foods that are complete in all of their vitamin and mineral content along with tons of fiber. So dates have a lot of fiber that come together with the sugar that's in them. They're also chock full of minerals and vitamins, as is the butternut. So you're getting fiber and vitamins and minerals, particularly vitamin C, vitamin A, and magnesium and phosphorus and manganese and copper and zinc and iron and all these other things that are like the little micronutrients that we don't tend to talk about all that much. You're going to get all of these things in what tastes like a dessert, but it's actually really, really good for you. So I hope this recipe helped. It's not exactly a recipe. You're still going to have to follow someone else's recipe, but I've given you all the tricks of how to make it vegan, how to make it whole food, and incredibly nutritious. Now, I've been contacted recently by so many people who Now, if you feel like you need more than just recipes to get you... Now, I know recipes can really help in upping your vitality, but sometimes people need a little bit more of a boost. They want to clarify their health goals. They want to clarify their life goals and what's going on with them, perhaps also emotionally. And having a coach can really help with that process. I'm happy to hold your hand through clarifying goals for your life, clarifying tools for how to activate those goals and manifest them in your life, and give you the accountability and the hand-holding and the support and the cheerleading that you need to make it all happen. If you're interested, you can sign up with me for a free discovery session either here on Facebook or on my website, hannahmason.com. In the meantime, I wish you many little joys. Want to find out what's blocking your vitality? Quickly take the quiz at hannahmason.com/health quiz.